So here we are, the year's end, with some notable camera releases in 2022. Some were groundbreaking innovations and some were, well, to be fair, was quite unnecessary, but whether or not you shoot videos or photos, I think we all can appreciate a good camera that appeals to our interests, or to some, it represents a vital tool for their professional career. Which is what this video is about, sharing to you our top camera picks of the year and some honorable mentions that I personally wish I had the opportunity to review, but it still made big waves amongst enthusiasts and professionals alike. But enough with the semantics, let's start off with, well, best suited for those rugged uses. So this category is for the best action cam. Starting off with our honorable mention, believe it or not, it goes to the GoPro Hero 11 Black. Now, we just couldn't give the GoPro a winner's title purely on how, even though it's considered the most finished action cam out there, and despite it coming with a newer 27 megapixel sensor, our impressions on it felt more of a comparison to other GoPros before it, not so much on the innovation end. While it's improved tremendously throughout the years, it hasn't evolved much from its predecessors. And because of that, the best winner, well, the best action cam goes to the Insta360 ONE RS, coming with a 48 megapixel interchangeable lens and being able to swap out the focal length and even the core in even the interchangeable battery. Having these modular thing sets a whole new tone for what's possible. Although it doesn't differ too far away from the ONE R, which came before it. There's far more innovation going on here, and it really seems like the guys at Insta360 plan to keep things interesting for future generations to come. So next up could be your choice for the perfect vlogging tool or something you could carry around in a backpack or something pocketable. Or a better way of saying things, something compact. This next category is the best compact camera. To be fair, this category could have easily been won by an iPhone 14 Pro at this point, coming with that 48 megapixel sensor. But ultimately, this is strictly for cameras alone, and the one that still made a reasonable sense for people looking to capture those casual moments and still keeping things discreet and still having the option to swap out lenses every now and then. For that, the winner for this category goes to the Nikon Z30. If I'm being honest, Nikon has been in a weird spot in the last few years for being put up against massive rivals like Sony and Canon. But seeing the Z30 and last year's release of the Z9, it still feels as though they're putting up one hell of a fight to stay relevant in today's world of mirrorless cameras. While the Nikon Z30 itself didn't give off any groundbreaking resolutions or image quality, practicality is still the priority here. It still came with a decent battery, ergonomics, autofocus, a very intuitive 3-inch touchscreen, 4K up to 30 FPS, and even higher frame rates up to 120. So yeah, a decent camera with decent specs, but ultimately it's more of a reasonable release this year compared to our honorable mention, the Sony ZV-1F. I personally didn't understand why Sony came up with a camera solely made for vlogging, but they did one anyway. Well, because they can, but for something that only serves for a very niche purpose. It doesn't justify why something like the Sony ZV-1F had to be made coming with a fixed 20mm lens, contrast autofocus, which also wasn't very reliable. In other words, they could have put their resources into making maybe a newer A6000 series, which would have stirred up quite a bit of a craze. And I mean, as I know, there's massive amounts of creators out there still rocking a A6300, but who knows? They might have just discontinued the series, or they might be saving it for sometime next year. So yeah, who knows? Okay, so this one, I don't have the camera, but next up is a standalone winner. Well, because nothing could even compete in the amount of R&D that went into this camera. Although it's not exactly your conventional DSLR or mirrorless or even a cinema camera, this category can only mean one thing: the most innovative. Now, if I remember correctly, last year's winner for this category went to the Canon R3 for having that eye-controlled autofocus and some other impressive sports photography essentials or video specs you can check out in the link above. But this isn't just some sports camera capable of shooting crazy resolutions or smart autofocus. No. This camera figured out a way to fit 3 to even 4, even more separate devices into one build. It's also a camera that unfortunately didn't make it onto this channel this year, but I personally think it sets a whole new mindset for how we think about cameras in general. And yeah, I'm talking about the Ronin 4D. While some of you might be thinking that, yeah, this camera came out about the same time last year and it's a little unfair to mention it again this time around, but they only did start shipping in February of this year, so it still counts in a way, and we personally just could not end the year without mentioning it. From built-in ND filters to a 4-axis gimbal, LiDAR focusing, built-in wireless transmissions, a full-frame sensor supporting internal recordings of Apple ProRes RAW, ProRes 422 HQ, and even supports up to 8K 75 FPS. The modularity you get is insane for this cinema camera and purely for a cinematographer's dream. And yeah, I personally wish I could have had the chance to review it. But yeah, since I'm giving this to DJI, I hope DJI hears this and lets us try it for this channel. Getting to the good stuff, getting to the more technical stuff, which also brings us to our next category, the best Cinecam. Starting off with our honorable mention, which is the Sony FX30, coming with a Super 35mm 20.1 megapixel sensor, 4K up to 120 FPS, 10-bit 422, and pretty much everything else you get in an FX3, but with a more affordable price tag. But yes, of course, it's not a full frame, while also missing out on the XLR top handle that comes separately. You still get a variable angle LCD display, flexible ISO modes, and focus breathing compensations, which was first introduced in the A7 IV. So yeah, in a way, it's still a very familiar Sony cinema camera, which isn't as daunting compared to the likes of an FX6 or even the FX9. But our pick for the best cinema camera for this year has got to be the Canon R5C. To be honest, I for one didn't expect the R5C to make much of a difference from the R5. Overheating and all. Believing as though taking out IBIS didn't really make sense, and fitting an internal fan might have made it a bit too bulky. But it really justifies itself as a Cinecam to combat previous issues seen in the R5, while also coming with a slightly different full-frame 45 megapixel sensor that doesn't come with IBIS. There should be significant improvements for rolling shutter, and will definitely remove all of that wobbly footage still seen in the standard R5. It also shoots internal recording up to 8K 30 FPS RAW and up to 8K 60 RAW with external power. Not to mention cinema EOS features such as C-Log3, waveforms, false color monitoring, and even a timecode terminal. Although Canon's dual pixel autofocus might not contest with Sony's hybrid phase autofocus, for the R5C in this case, it really does give you more of a powerhouse option, while compared to the FX30, which felt more of a toned down version of the FX3, as I just mentioned earlier. But as an ultimate choice for the best camera of 2022, It boils down to how it serves for both video and photo capture. While other cameras that didn't make the list, such as the Panasonic GH6, should definitely deserve some applause for improving its low light performance, and even the GH5 from the GH5, our honorable mention for this category goes to the Fujifilm X-H2S. Hope I'm saying that right. Also, another camera we didn't get to review on this channel, but definitely caught our attention on how the suggested specs were too loud to be ignored, such as extending the camera's ability to record continuous frames in burst mode without stopping, while reaching blackout free speeds of up to 40 FPS, which make over 1,000 frames continuously at 30 FPS in JPEG, or write raw images at 20 FPS when using the electronic shutter. On top of that, it also does 6.2K 30 FPS ProRes 422HQ, 10-bit or DCI 4K at 10-bit 422. Yeah, a lot of numbers. Like I said, I still have not tested out this camera in person, and it just sounds too ridiculous to be even true. And hopefully we can put it together to test it sometime in the future. Which is why the winner for the best camera of 2022 has to be given, you guessed it, the Sony a7R Mark V. Personally, I had a hard time accepting this camera to win best camera of the year, but you simply just can't silence Sony with their Alpha series. They really do represent a well-oiled machine of today's standards, and well, the results speak for themselves. From a new 61 megapixel full frame sensor, that new 4-axis vari-angle LCD monitor, a newly developed AI processing unit for multiple subject detections, even insects, and up to 693 phase detection autofocus, which covers about 79% of the image area, to 8K, to 25 10-bit 420 video recording. In more ways than one, I personally feel they were just holding back the a7R V just a tad bit to justify the existence of the flagship A1. But nevertheless, it's still a beast of a camera regardless of your reason to use this camera for photo or video capture. It's just insane. So there it is, our top picks of the year. And we do hope you can keep things in a civil manner within the comment section down below. After all, cameras are just a tool, guys, and 2022 has blessed us with quite of a range of cameras, and for that I personally am grateful. Otherwise, well, I won't have a job, but yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video. The Fuji X-H2S though. Yeah, I'll try to get that camera on this channel soon enough. Alright, see ya.